episode 252 of Global from Asia on Becoming an Expat.
Welcome to the Global from Asia podcast, where the daunting process of running an international business is broken down into straight-up, actionable advice. And now, your host, Michael Michelini.
Good day, good evening. Hello, everyone. It's always fun to hear from listeners in random places, and it's the May holiday, and I've been getting some messages. People enjoy the show. It's kind of always strange to know if people are actually tuning in or not. We are all over the internet on various channels in China, and Rico helped us get into, I'm forgetting even the other channels, honestly. I'm just getting old. Just playing with my kids and working online. But we are here, and this show will go online in a few days. We'll publish on the 7th of May, so the May 1st holiday will have just finished in China. It's one of these long Labor Days, so hopefully get some manufacturing orders in for us here, and things are okay. We have a cool show talking about expat life, and I'll stick my 10 minutes blah 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 after Mikkel's awesome interview, and he tells his story. I'll share a little bit of my expat story. I will give some insights. Feel like I've talked about some of this in other shows, but if you guys like listening, I like talking. Blah, 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 like my kids say. But there's a lot of things happening. I've been actually really excited to bring Cross-Border Summit back, our 4th annual, first time in Guangzhou, China. It's a little bit hard to leave China. I mean, we got a lot of roots there, a lot of networking there. Mark Ramos will be helping us out on the ground, making some talks with Chris Davey and Cindy Juju at FBA for You, and they always are so supportive. They had an amazing couple of FBA for You meetups this past Canton Fair trade show season. So stay tuned for the Cross-Border Summit in 2019. Mark the calendar, October 22nd and 23rd. Might even stick a day or two after. We're thinking about just some more workshops and boot camp style intensive training for those that want even more. I want to talk more about expat life, but I want to get into the show. We'll keep the intros here a little bit pre-talk before the interview shorter, and I'll stick a little bit more time after. Let's just dive into the show. Let's tune in. And of course, thank you to our sponsor, GoRemit.hk. They're our long-term sponsor here at the Global from Asia show. I just used them to make a payment to my team in the Philippines and also a supplier in Ningbo, China. Actually, we will do an interview with some of our trading activity in Ningbo soon. If you do make payments in Asia from your Hong Kong bank, you want to save in some fees and make them fast and easy, check out GoRemit.hk. Completely free to sign up, no transaction fees, only on the FX rates at a very fair price. If you like the show and you want to let them know, definitely tell them Global from Asia sent you. You'll sign up for free, go through a KYC process to get verified, and you will be able to make your cross-border payments like I do. Thanks again, GoRemit.hk. Thank you, everybody, for tuning to the Global from Asia podcast. We are talking expat. We got an expat veteran, 20 plus years in the industry, and a friend and fellow podcaster, Mikkel Thorup. Thank you for being here on the show today.
Thanks very much for having me, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I had a pleasure to go on your show, and I'm glad I finally have the chance to get you on. You're the #1 best-selling author of Expat Secrets, How to Pay Zero Taxes, Live Overseas, and Make Giant Piles of Money, Cash Money. And you also host, as I mentioned, the podcast, The Expat Money Show, which is, of course, on iTunes and Stitcher. And you've lived, as we just said before recording, how many countries have you based in now?
So I've lived in 7 countries. We're about to make the move to our 8th country, but that's actually living as an expat.
Sure.
But I've traveled to, I think, at last count, like 102 or 104 countries, something
Awesome.
around there, around 100 plus countries.
And I see in our outline here, North Korea, Zimbabwe, El Salvador, Iran. pretty wild places.
Oh, I like all random countries. I like all the countries that people don't get a chance to normally visit, and then go in there and make my own mind up about the place, because a lot of times people will have really bad ideas about a country, and it comes from, mainstream media or the government, neither of which I'm a very big fan of. But, I like to make my own decisions on these types of things. Like Iran was one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to in my life. And if you watch mainstream media, they'll tell you it is the axis of evil and all
Hmm.
these things. And actually it's a stunning, beautiful country with very lovely people. And I guess we can get into it later on, but always try to make a separation between the government and the people. The government is one thing, the populace is something else,
Yeah,
especially in some of these types of countries.
yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, we put this show on to Chinese podcasts as well, and literally like yesterday, we're publishing a recent episode, and my wife helps with that. We both have Chinese wives too, which is pretty cool, and she they kept deleting our podcast. I don't know. I think it was some keyword they didn't like, but what I mean is people and the countries are, the government or the ruling body of a country and a people are totally separate. Like just reiterating what you said, and I think a lot of times people that don't travel like you or I don't realize that, and they just listen to the media and mass TV, especially in one country, which I'm not a conspiracy person, but I think, media is, especially mass media, maybe not your podcast or my podcast, but, mainstream media, I think is somewhat influenced probably by that country's governing body, right? That kind of,
Well, absolutely, because I think this is why it's so important for podcasts like yours and mine to actually exist, because this is what gives you the alternative. Like, I don't think that's conspiracy theory by any means to understand that mainstream media is controlled by the government. You
yeah,
have lobbyists and you have people that do favors, and this is crony capitalism. Now,
yeah,
I am a true blue capitalist, and I'm pro business and everything like this, but I don't believe in behind closed doors, you know, type of deals that keep other people out of the market. I'm a free market enterprise type of person. I believe in Austrian School of Economics, and the capitalism that we have in a lot of places in the world today is pretty despicable.
hmm,
Still, I'll take that over socialism any day of the week. I think socialism and communism and offshoots of this are some of the most evil things on planet Earth. But yeah, libertarianism is really where I live, I suppose.
yeah. I feel the same. I mean, I think that's probably from your 20 years over, living overseas as an expat. So, which kind of leads into our kind of core question. First question off the bat is what, we use this word expat, and sometimes we don't maybe even know. Let's just make sure what's the true definition of expat in your way.
Okay, so when I use the word expat, it's literally just a short form of expatriate. So someone who has left their country of birth to live and work overseas. Now, I suppose the difference between an expat and an immigrant is an immigrant is actually moving their entire life to a new country, and they plan on never going back. They've now set up a house, a home, a life, and that is it. Maybe they'll spend the rest of their life in that one place. Now, I've been an expat in 7 different countries. And every time that I come to a country, I know that it's temporary. Now, temporary might be 1 year, like in the case when I lived in New Zealand, or it might be 8 years, like living in the UAE. I live in Abu Dhabi currently. And, I've been here since 2011. And in both cases, I'm an expat. I'll never be a citizen of the UAE. I could live here for 80 years and I'll never be a citizen. It's not an option available to me. Um, but there's a lot of people, for some reason, they have this racist perspective of expat. They think it's something that only white people do.
Mm,
Well, I'm here to tell you that is not the case. It is not true whatsoever. Here in the UAE, as an example, something like 90% of the workforce are expats and 80% of the population. So, it doesn't matter if you're from India or Pakistan or Afghanistan or from Canada, the United States, or Great Britain. In this country, you're always considered an expat. And we really run this entire country. The country would come to a grinding halt if there were no expats here. And we do a
Hmm.
lot of jobs that the local people will not want to do, will not have the skills to do, will not have the education or the expertise to do. And we really help this entire country thrive. And Mike, I don't have any like exact statistics in front of me, but I can definitely tell you that in a place like the UAE or Oman or Kuwait, Qatar, any of these places, that the country wouldn't run without the expats, and there's no way around doing things without our expertise. I'd say these are the largest expat communities in the world. I've visited many other expat communities, but I'd say these are definitely the largest.
Yeah, I still have to get over there. I've heard amazing things. I went to college in New Jersey, Stevens Tech, and I had some friends from Kuwait and different parts of the Middle East, and one even invited me for a business opportunity. I don't think I ever to come out to Kuwait, and almost did it, to be honest. I haven't really shared too much. It was very early stage. I didn't make that move, but he was just trying to
Kuwait's a
say,
beautiful country. It's a little bit slow. It's a completely dry country, so there's no alcohol there whatsoever. It was funny actually when I flew in there. I think we had some bottles of water or something, because most countries here in the GCC, you can't drink the water just out of the tap. It's all
Mhm.
desalinated water. So mostly we drink bottled water here. And they actually like made us open the bottles and take a big swig from them just to make sure that it wasn't alcohol, and then they smelling it and stuff. And we're like, no, it's just water. But they were very particular when we came in. But it's a
Wow.
beautiful country. They have a beautiful grand mosque. In Kuwait City, and there's the old part of the city. And yeah, it was a nice experience. I just went over for, I think, 4 days or something to just have a peek around and take a look.
Exciting. Yeah, I'm a little envious, but there's definitely lots of amazing places, and that's kind of the benefit of being an expat. And so some of your stories, how did it's been 20 years now as an expat, how did it get started?
So it's for my story, it kind of goes like really back in time. Like a lot of people, they have this 9 to 5 job and they're unhappy with their life and they decide to sell everything and move overseas. That is not me whatsoever. So what happened with me is a little bit different. I was actually diagnosed with a learning disability as a child, and at I think I don't know how old I was exactly, but I was in grade 3. They diagnosed me and they said, okay, well, we need to send him to a special school to learn how to read, write, and spell because he's not keeping up and all of these types of things.
Hmm.
So they put me in a little white bus and they drove me across town and they sent me to a special school. But the only problem, Mike, was it was actually not a special school. It was actually a special class in a regular school. So you can imagine all these kids looking at me and gossiping and talking behind my back. And, apparently I'm part of the retard school, the retard class.
Mm,
1980s, imagine, totally
yeah,
politically correct, I
I
know.
can imagine. I've
So
been
I ended up
there.
getting in a lot of fights when I was a kid. Basically, every single day I would get in some type of an altercation or fist fight. I had my nose broken 3 times. I had my tooth put through my lip. I had my teeth knocked out, concussion. I was in the hospital a couple of times, and it was a rough time. All of grades 4, 5, and 6. And I thought, when I finally got to leave this school and I was going back to my own neighborhood school, back with all the kids that I had grown up with earlier, I thought everything is going to be better, Mike. I thought this is, finally I'm not going to be terrorized and I'm not going to get in these fights and everything is going to be okay. And I got back to my normal school and everyone started gossiping and whispering. Oh, where's he been? I remember him. He went to that retard school. Oh my God, there's something wrong with him. And of course, the fights and everything that just continue. Just a new group of kids to beat up and to get beat up by. Well, after 2 years of this, I had pretty much had enough. So at grade 9, around 12 years old, I just stopped going to school. I was like, I don't like this. I had
Yeah.
come home from school crying almost every day for years on end. And I really felt like I didn't belong in my hometown, in my home, in my school, anything like this. And at 12, I stopped going to school. By 15, I was had officially dropped out, but by 12, I basically stopped going. The odd class here and there, but was failing everything and didn't have a good time at all. And then, not shortly after, I discovered traveling. I had never really been overseas. We drove across. I'm from southwestern Ontario, so we would drive over to Detroit or something like that. Which is a couple hours from the border. But that was it. And I started traveling, and I started meeting all these people from different countries and cultures and different experiences, and they didn't know my history and my problems with my learning disability, quote unquote. We just know now that it's just a form of dyslexia. It's actually quite common. It happens all the time. I have a very high IQ. I'm very intelligent, but there's certain problems with reading and writing that I had a lot of trouble with as a kid. So I started traveling in my teens and really felt like I had found myself and what I was meant to do. And, one trip led into another. I moved overseas. And, like I said, it's been roughly 20 years now that I've been doing this, and I've never stopped. I'm not and we can get into this afterwards. I'm not a digital nomad. I'm not continually on the road with a backpack. Although I have been on the road for extended periods of time with a backpack, these days I do short trips, a week here, a week there. I like my 5-star hotels. I have the money to do things like that now. But yeah, I live full time in the Middle East, and I love my life, and I always help other people to make a change in their life and move overseas. So that's kind of, in a nutshell. This is your life, Mikkel Thorpe, I suppose.
Nice. There we go. Thanks for opening up like that. It's pretty, yeah, I mean, yeah, as a new father, I get nervous, like, seeing my kid go to school and just afraid of like those kind of, children are just cruel people. I guess maybe it's just human nature without any, not holding back, kind of. Like, I think as we get older, we just don't say those things, and we think those things are the general. But yeah, like kids seem like
there's no social
kids.
restraint when you're that age,
Like,
and you learn how to be a human being from someone who doesn't know how to be an effective human being in society. So, like, you have 2 kids. I've got a little girl, almost like quite similar age as our kids. We're gonna homeschool our kid. Like, I want my child to learn how to be an effective, loving, caring human being from adults who know how to show this behavior, opposed to other kids who pick on everything and find differences in everything. I still want her to have friends. I'm not talking about non-socializing her, but I think when you take 30 kids or 35 kids and put them in a room, they become like pack animals. It's you have to be really careful.
agreed. Yeah, it's just it's really, I mean, as a parent, yeah, I think it's just so yeah, I feel so responsible, but and we'll see. We'll just keep on doing what we can to make the best for our children and try not to have them go through similar things. I
I
think
think that a lot of the problems come down to being a government-run school. I think with private schools, probably the experience will be a lot better. And I know for a lot of expat families, they only do private schools, where the curriculum is decided by people who don't have political agendas. I know for sure when you look at the schooling in the United States, they like that type of behavior, that alienating of the child from the family, from the church, from themselves, from their friends, from everybody. Start reading some of the work by John Taylor Gatto, and you really start to understand how these types of schools are set up and what they were originally designed for. And they're doing a fantastic job of getting exactly what they want. And it is not to be a loving, effective, and like I will continue to repeat these phrases because it's so true. an effective human being. That's not what they want at all. They want consumers. They want someone who will go and do their 9 to 5 job and then come home and watch television all night. And that's what they want. They want something that they can control and is standardized.
It is. I feel the similar because it's easier, right? You put people into this track, right? I think of obviously the late Steve Jobs has so much amazing stuff I've seen online, but one I have in my mind is he says, life, you can stay on this like racetrack, right, and just not bump against the walls and just follow the pack of cars or people or sheep or whatever. And yeah, you can live your life, and you'll have a good life, and you'll do fine. Or you could try to bang up against the wall, go faster, go a different way, go off the track. I'm saying it wrong, but that's one. And the other one is really crazy. You probably I think it's a dead president says it, but most people die at 25. We just don't put them in a box until they're 75.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people just kind of, in a way, give up, right, and just follow the track that they're given, stay in that comfortable 9 to 5 and do what they need to do and get through life.
Well, there are so many alternatives out there for how you can live your life. And you know what? As far as any of us can ever tell or be certain about, this is the only life we have to live. So it's like, if you're not happy with, your job, your living conditions, where you live, there are options out there, and there are people who are already doing things like this. It's not that scary. It's really not that hard. Like, I've traveled to a lot of places. I wouldn't say any of it is hard. Like, I went to North Korea. That wasn't hard. That wasn't challenging. That wasn't difficult. I just did it. It was easy. It was just my life. Like, I wanted to see what it was like, and I did it. And I wanted to go to these other places, and so I did it. People think about all these problems with safety and are they going to be okay? And is someone going to get kidnapped and hurt and terrorism? And it's like, my God. First of all, you have to understand that inherently human beings are good. And it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, brown, white, red, yellow, tall, short, fat, it doesn't matter, male, female, gay, it doesn't matter. People are inherently good, and they're not out there to get you. And you can explore the world and travel and live life on your terms and see what's going on and experience things. And you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be scared. People will always help you. You don't speak the language, no problem. Pantomime, like, remember those games like Pictionary and things like that, stuff like that. It actually works. We have phones, we have apps for translation. We have maps that are on your phone and GPS that you can get in every country in the world. It's like, when I started traveling 20 years ago, we didn't have anything. I was writing my father postcards and stuff to keep in communication. Like, now it's like even easier. There's no excuse for someone not getting out there and exploring the world.
Totally agree. I mean, the couple things that just came up, like I was, as we've been keeping up an email a little bit, and I was down traveling in a little bit of more outskirts of Thailand, and I took a Grab, which is amazing, Grab or Uber, for those who don't know Grab, it's like a similar one here in Southeast Asia. And literally I was talking to my driver through Google Translate voice. She would say something into the real-time translator, it would spit out English. I would say something and it would spit out Thai to her. It was like unbelievable. It's really unbelievable.
It's like the babble fish from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Like, things like this are actually starting to appear in real life now. It's amazing.
Yeah, so your show, you've been interviewing people, really amazing guests, which people should definitely check out your show. And what's the trend? I mean, how does somebody even start to plan? I know you said a lot of times people are just sick of their 9 to 5, or what's the common way? I know you seem like you have a pretty non-traditional way, or what's a good way you tell people to get started or get onto this track? Well,
I think that straight off the bat, it comes down to a mental thing. Yeah. So First of all, people have to understand the numbers. And this is what I would do when I was traveling in a lot of countries, especially through the third world countries. And I would think to myself, it's like, okay, so I'm in Guatemala and Guatemala costs me, say, 10 US dollars a day. So every day that I work back home, now let's put ourselves in when I was in my 20s and use Guatemala as an example. I was earning minimum wage when I started, you know? So I think minimum wage when I started was $6, but say it was $10 to make ease of numbers. So you can travel for an entire day for the cost of working 1 hour. So if you work an 8-hour day, you're going to get just over a week. So when you start to realize things like that, the price of goods, the price of services, things that you normally spend money on have a very different outlook. So instead of going and drinking a Starbucks coffee at $4, you know that that's going to buy you a 3-course meal when you're abroad, or that's going to pay your entire youth hostel. And I'm using examples of when I was traveling in cheap countries, you know, and just traveling. But even 3-star, 4-star, 5-star hotels can be a fraction of the price when you're going overseas. So I think that understanding a lot of the numbers straight off the bat can make a big difference on how you put aside money while you're saving up to go abroad. But I would say to live a decent life on the road, you know, somewhere around that $1,000 to $2,000 a month mark is quite reasonable. And I mean, you would be doing anything and everything that you could ever imagine for that type of money. Like when I was in Central America, I was going scuba diving every day. I did over 130 dives in maybe 10 or 12 different countries. We were eating fantastic food. We were staying in beautiful places. We were hiking, going to museums, drinking coffees. And I mean, this is peanuts. You know, this was pennies on the dollar from what I would pay in Toronto or somewhere like that to live. So I think understanding things like this straight off the bat can really give you some motivation, because a lot of people will think one day, you know, this one day I will do this, one day I will do an around the world trip or travel overseas or move overseas. But you actually have to make the decision to do it, you know, on a set date. Okay, in 10 months from now, in 6 months from now, on March 21st or whatever type of date, set that for yourself and then start saving, and then just live below your means and start putting money aside. I think these are like the really, 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 really simple things that just anybody can do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, we're almost on the same page. I'm a believer of, you know, starting now and kind of optimizing as you go rather than I think, of course, those people that are the perfectionists that think that there's one day everything in their life is going to line up and they're going to have perfect amount of money, the perfect opportunity. You know, you're going to have to probably jump before you're perfectly ready. And like you said, figure it out as you go. And I think that's part of it, you know.
Well, I think it's so important to understand, and this just is good life advice, that basically anything that you do in life, you are going to suck at the first time you do it. It doesn't matter what it is. Like you are going to suck. And people seem to believe that they should be good at something, or they should have, you know, natural talent, or it should be in their DNA or in their blood. They're just a natural at these things. Listen, I have struggled for everything that I have ever received in my life. Everything. Like everything. Nothing comes easy to me. I just work harder than anybody else. Like I work nonstop all day, every day to make my dreams come true. And traveling and living overseas and understanding these types of things, you're going to suck at first. You're going to suck at it. You're going to spend more money than you should. You're going to get ripped off. You're probably going to get robbed by a taxi driver, all these different things. Don't worry about it. It all comes with experience. It's okay. Like you said, Mike, jump in, dive in, because just reading about it armchair is not really going to help you. Like the amount that you're going to learn from doing your first trip or moving overseas your very first time, you can't read about that. Like I do believe in trying to prepare and educate yourself. Education and self-education is big proponents of my message. But you're right. At some point, you need to jump in, and that's really where you're going to learn.
Agreed. I mean, it's been exciting. Let's talk about some of the things we've been really excited to talk about your new book, the Expat Secrets, and maybe give us a little bit of overview of that.
Yeah. So what I've done with this book is I tried to take really complex ideas and make them as simple as possible. I think that there is and when we've talked about this many times, back and forth, Mike, clarity is king.
Exactly.
I think that I really believe in this. I could write a book which has every single detail in 20 years of experience of living overseas and try to put it into one book. It would be the size of a phone book or maybe multiple phone books, but no one's going to want to read that. That's not doing anyone a service. So what I tried to do was highlight the key things that people need to understand to internationalize their life, to lower their tax bills, in a lot of cases, eliminate their tax bills, and invest and make money overseas so that they can travel, so that they don't have these type of restraints that a lot of people would normally have. So we talk about a lot of things like overseas banking, offshore company formation, doing it in a tax favorable manner. And I will preface it saying that this is all completely legal. I'm not talking about, doing anything that's against governments. Although, like I said earlier, I am a hardcore libertarian and I do believe that we need less government. I still follow the laws that are the laws of the land. I do not want to get thrown in a cage. So I never recommend things that are not legal. But there are a lot of ways that you can do this, and strategies and tips and tricks that you can remove or eliminate or reduce your tax bill. And I have firsthand experience doing these types of things. A lot of my very close friends are lawyers and CPAs, things that I don't know or understand. I went direct to the source. I work with some of the most famous asset protection lawyers in the world, guys who charge $1,000, $2,000 an hour for their time. Freely give it to me because we're very close friends. So the book is very well researched, very well thought out. And it's a fun read, I would say. Like I said, it's not overwhelming. I tried to pack as much punch into 150 pages that I could. It'll take you an afternoon to read it, and it should. My objective is to really open your eyes to what is out there in the world and the ways that you can do it, and then give you all the resources for where you can follow up based on what you need next. If you need to understand more about the real estate side, we have a whole bunch of extra resources that go with the purchase of your book, and you can get them all free. You just put in your name and email address, and they're all downloadable, and you have them instantly. But if that doesn't speak to you, if something else in the book does, you get those ones instead. So I tried to tailor make it for the individual reader's needs. And so far, the response has been phenomenal. Like you mentioned, it's a #1 bestseller. I think it spent 11 weeks in the United States as a #1 bestseller. And people can pick up a copy on Amazon. You just search Expat Secrets, or if you go to expatsecretsbook.com, it'll redirect you directly to the site. And I encourage you to pick up a copy.
Great. Yeah, definitely recommend checking it out. And I think I think we're both, on a similar track, and this is the future. I think I feel, governments are trying to hold on, and especially banks in my world in Asia and Hong Kong and business, they're just trying to hold us back. And I feel, but it's just that it's great that you're sharing this information and creating these resources to help people kind of at least break as free as possible and live the life that I think humans should live, right?
Yeah, well, the less government interference that we have in our lives, the more prosperous we're going to be. Now, you have these people in the United States right now who want to do, top income tax at 70%. Well, I'll tell you, you're going to have so much capital flight in a country like that, that it's just going to cripple the place. And they think that they're helping. And we have seen it is It is scientifically proven that socialism and communism don't work. And the fact that we're now getting this in North America, it's really scary. It's really terrifying. And it has to do with governments, big banks, big corporations, this crony capitalism that I talked about before, and mainstream media. And we really have to do everything in our power to fight against this and to take personal responsibility for our lives and our finances and our situation, and work very hard to fight these types of things. And like I said before, I will obey the law of the land because I do not want to be thrown in a cage, but it is my right to do everything in my power to pay zero taxes. And like we say, like, starve the beast. Every dollar that you give them is, these are bombs that are being dropped on villages. These are wars that are being fought with your dollars. This is not money that is going to, feed the homeless and things like this, or repair the roads. Repair the roads is this funny one that I get from people every time I talk about taxation. It's like, if you look at the spending of a country, the road work is like one fraction of 1%. But if you look at defense spending, you're talking massive amounts of the national budget. So it's things like this that really drive me every day to try to help educate people and try to push people in a manner where they can be more self-sustaining and build their own business and be responsible for their own lives, if that makes sense, Mike.
Totally understand. I've watched some videos where federal income tax in the U.S. goes just to the federal bank or some. I don't know. I don't want to be quoted. I don't think definitely federal income tax doesn't seem to go to the roads and to the schools, right? From what I understand, I feel similar that a lot of this doesn't go to where we, at least I will speak for myself, should go. And
well, look at countries like Singapore. Look at countries like Hong Kong. These countries are booming, and they had smaller governments and more libertarian governments, and they went from swamps, like Singapore was a swamp, to now one of the richest countries in the world. They have more millionaires per capita than I think any other country in the world. Their GDP per capita is highest in the world. They have the strongest passport in the world. It's like, the less government you have, the better. The more government, the worse off the country is. Like, we've tried every other philosophical idea for running a country except libertarianism. And I really want to see this put in place. And I don't know if we will ever get a truly libertarian country, but if we do, I will definitely be moving there as an expat.
Awesome. Great. All right. Well, this has been a fascinating interview, and I'm glad we got you onto the show. And definitely I recommend people check out your podcast, your book. We'll link these all up in the show notes as well. And any last things you'd like to share? I think we got the link to the book, and your podcast and blog is expatmoneyshow.com.
Yeah, so if people like the ideas that we've been talking about today, I do encourage you to go out and pick up a copy of the book. I have been told it's quite a disruptive book. There is a lot of lawyers and people out there who are a little bit angry that I'm giving away a lot of these secrets for free, or for whatever, $10 or $20 the cost of the book. But yeah, pick that up on Amazon and check out my podcast, expatmoneyshow.com. I do weekly interviews. I've had people like Jim Rogers, Doug Casey. You, Mike, were a guest on my show. Lots of really fantastic people. That was a fun interview. So
I enjoyed that.
Come over, check it out. And if you have any questions, you can get a hold of me on the website, and I'm here to help.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing on the show today.
Thanks, Mike, for having me.
Are you looking to grow your international business from Asia? Amazon FBA, import, export, and cross-border e-commerce are trends in today's world, especially here at Global from Asia. And we put together an e-course, e-book, both actually, all together for you for free. So fast track getting you going global from Asia. Check it out at globalfromasia.com/ebook. You'll get the book as well as an interactive e-course that will be catered based on how you answer the email series. So I look forward to seeing you on the inside. Check it out, globalfromasia.com/ebook. Thank you for that great interview, Mikkel, and I hope you listeners enjoyed that. I always get some also mixed feedback. Some people don't like the Amazon content. They say there's enough of that out there. They like the China, the Asia interviews, the stories. Thanks for that feedback from listeners. So my turn to do the blah, blah, blah. Some of y'all like this, and that's at the end, so I can get away with doing the blah, blah, blah. Okay, so how did I become an expat? I never really, actually, I had to change the show name. I called it Digital Nomad, how I became a digital nomad, but we were discussing the show, and before the interview, it says it's more expat. I feel like expat means like you're on a package, you're on like a corporate overseas endeavor and the company's paying your way. Maybe that's what it is. I think it really stands for expatriate. But I never really considered myself that. But I think if you're here for the long term, here or there, or was that Dr. Seuss, here, there, everywhere? But it's true. If you are nowhere or not in your home country, you're an expat, especially if you're there for the long term. And yeah, I guess I'm not a digital nomad. Maybe I never really was. I spent almost 10 years in China and over a year now almost in Thailand, with hopefully many more to go. I plan to be a permanent expat. There's definitely challenges with that, but I said at the intro I'd talk about how I became an expat or how I came overseas. I think we talked about it, but I was a Wall Street guy. I had my Series 7 and 63 NASD, I think, NASDAQ or NAS license. I did the tests and I was a broker. Honestly, I didn't really make trades. I was more relaying trades. I was a trading assistant, or I moved up the chain to become a trading assistant on a distressed debt or junk bond desk at Deutsche Bank, Bank of Germany, in German it means, on 60 Wall Street at a JP Morgan building that DB bought. And but I always wanted, actually, I don't want to say expat, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't even know probably what the word meant. I thought I had to get an MBA. I thought I had to learn how to start a company and had to get like some kind of a license or education. And I thought I had to work for a few years. I thought I had to then get into MBA school. And then I thought I had to like learn and meet people on how to start a business. Man, I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. And maybe I still don't know what I'm doing. But I think, like Mikkel says, you just got to do it. So I was selling on eBay back in 2004 and led up to, my own website. And also in 2004, but got better at it in 2005. And just making so many mistakes on how to do that. But then led me into buying from Chinese factories, making huge mistakes. And then quit the job to San Diego, so still wasn't an expat. Had a buddy, Peter. I don't think he reads the blog, my personal blog, but I don't think he listens to the show. But Peter had a place out in Ocean Beach, San Diego, 2007. So I was like, hey, I'll head out there. It had extra space for me, $400 a month, 2 blocks from the beach. Awesome. Near Dog Beach, for those that know Ocean Beach, OB. And I got bored there, seriously. I mean, it's beautiful, but it was boring. Like, I was sitting in a coffee shop. I'm not a fan of Starbucks. I like the locals. So the local lady was mom and pop. She just said, I got to put your name on this seat. Because I don't know if she's almost annoyed. I seriously probably got there in the morning and worked until the afternoon. And, I bought some food and coffee. I don't know. There's another story. I think I talked about that last show, about how the coffee shop in Hua Hin didn't even want to serve me, or didn't want me to plug in at least. Anyway, took a trip to China. Didn't think I would live there, and was just blown away. I mean, it was just insanity. I've upset some Chinese friends because I thought it would be like rice paddies and dirt roads. I won't speak for all Americans, but I'll speak for myself. I had no idea it was this developed. And I was like, man, there's just so much happening here, so much to learn, so much I don't know. And made my 4-week trip into 5 weeks in October into November 2007. And then came home. Well, I was homeless. I had already kind of canceled my room in San Diego and went back to Florida where my parents had retired. And I was like, Mom and Dad, I'll hang out here with you guys for Christmas, but I'm not going back to New York. San Diego was kind of boring. I spent 4 or 5 months there. I'm not living in Florida. I don't know. Maybe it would be cool now, but I'm going to China. And I remember there was some discussions over the holiday, and I took a flight to China, 2007, directly into Shenzhen. I flew into Hong Kong, but like many here, took a cross-border van. I think that was maybe the first time I had done that. I got so lost. I remember Melissa, my assistant. I should get her on a show. Can you believe she's married? She has a Chinese husband. She's Chinese, and she lives in South Africa now. Her husband works for Huawei, and they have a office there, so she's in South Africa. She brought me an awesome like ostrich egg when I was living in Shenzhen when she came back, but maybe get her on the show. But anyway, I was totally lost and got into hotels and wasn't sure how long I would be here in China, and it was maybe at least a few weeks in hotels in different parts of Shenzhen, looking at apartments, figuring out how to set up a company. So many mistakes. Actually, it's kind of hopefully I help some people on this show, but I thought I had opened up a mainland Chinese company, but I got advised and I paid a few $1,000s for that knowledge from a lawyer to open a Hong Kong company first and then open a Chinese subsidiary under the Hong Kong company. Basically all this stuff I had no idea, and I was just kind of balancing information I got from, I don't know if we call them expats or drinking enthusiasts at the local bar, foreigners. I met some very colorful people in my days in China, or there's many of those expats that, especially me, I was kind of at the end of it in 2007, but there was people that made a living doing a couple of trades, buying and selling from Chinese factories and making a decent margin in the middle, and then just enough beer money for a month and food, and then get another deal. But that was already going away when I got into China. I felt like the easy days of trading were going away already. But I was collecting information from those guys. I mean, they were smart. They had been there 10 years already. I don't want to name names. Great people. But do a shout out to Mike Bellamy from Passage Maker. He gave me some amazing advice. He also inspired me quite a bit. He's been on the show a couple of times. But I had no idea. I booked my return ticket to the longest. I used Continental Airlines. I had points or whatever for my Vegas trips when I worked in New York City. But I booked a return ticket because it was like so much cheaper than a one-way. So I booked my return for like June 2008. So I was like, I'll hang out here for 6 months and I'll see what happens. If I had known I'd be here 10 years, I would have done so many different things. That's the tricky part. If you know you're going to be somewhere a long time, buy real estate. I don't know. It just seems like the trend I have seen everywhere I've been. In Hoboken, New Jersey, if I had bought, if I had 5 years. Well, I live in New York, anywhere, but I never have bought real estate, unfortunately. It seems like everywhere I go, the prices go up. But I didn't know. I didn't know I would be there. 6 months turned into, I took that return ticket in June. I had a rented apartment, but I was willing to lose the deposit. You can lose the deposit. There was no Airbnbs then, so I just booked a 1-year lease at a place in Nanshan district of Shenzhen. That building's still there last time I saw, but there was everything else was getting built. I was in Sida Dasha, kind of near Shekou Walmart for those that know that area, kind of near Haya Bai Hua, kind of near Haiwang Dasha. But yeah, basically, for 10 years I was learning. There was so much to learn, and hopefully I've shared some of this knowledge in these blah blah blahs or with guests on these interviews. But that's how I became an expat, and we've talked about this with other shows and in my blah 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 blah. But when do you go back to your home country? When is that reason, that announcement? I've been getting lots and lots of friends saying they're going back to the States. It's usually the trigger is the kids. Like, honestly, it's even been passing through my mind lately, You really have to almost fight. You have to go against everything to stay outside your home country when you have kids. It seems like that's definitely a huge challenge to be an expat overseas. There's these international schools everywhere that charge like 20 to 25,000 US dollars per year for kindergarten, and they're full. And some of them have waiting lists. So, man, I should open a kindergarten and charge $25,000 a year for kindergarten. That is insanity to me. I mean, that's insane. 50 grand for me. So a lot of times expats leave because they don't want to pay $50,000 for their two kids to go to play number blocks and Legos. So yeah, but when is that? I mean, that is usually a trigger when people go back. But for me, that's how I became an expat. My first year, I extended. I finished a lease. I switched. I rented offices. There's so much stories. I have a book on Amazon about some of this called Destination China. It's like $6 on Kindle, I think, if you want to read the whole detail. It's just too much to put in the 10-minute blah, 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 which we just hit on my Audacity recording software. But I think the point of today's show is there's never going to be a right time to become an expat, to break out of your mold, to break out of the 9 to 5, to break out of your normal, what your parents, what your friends expect you to do. So it'd be really cool if this show somehow influenced somebody to take that jump and to take that chance. And what's the worst, really? Honestly, what's the worst that could happen? You spend a year overseas, maybe even get a job overseas, or you try to do your Amazon, or you try to do whatever, and then you go back and get another job. Maybe go back to the same company, and you probably have so much more experience. And that MBA I never took, I think this is a much more valuable experience than an MBA. I don't think there's any question in my mind, and most others would agree. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thank you, and thank you Government HK sponsoring, supporting this show. We've come back now for a couple of months. I hope everybody's enjoying the new shows, and I'm going to go hang out with my kids again. Watch some YouTube cartoons. Yippee.
To get more info about running an international business, please visit our website at www.globalfromasia.com. That's www.globalfromasia.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our iTunes feed. Thanks for tuning in.